Sangye Chedang Zogi Chonamba Chanchu Badu Dagni Kyasuchi Dagi Chejinge Pesonange Rola Penje Sangye Drupa Sho Sangye Chedang Zogi Chonamba Chanchu Badu Dagni Kyasuchi Dagi Chejinge Pesonange Rola Penje Sangye Drupa Sho Sangye Chedang Zogi Chonam La Chanchu Baru Dani Gyapsuki Dagi Chejing Ye Bezonam Ge Rola Penje Samge Drupa Sho. So we take refuge there to remind us that we're Dharma practitioners, followers, practitioners of the Buddha's teaching, and then first two lines, and then the second two lines we generate bodhicitta to distinguish ourselves from the followers of the Hinayana path, or the individual vehicle, some people call it, to distinguish ourselves from practitioners who are striving for individual liberation, and to remind us that we're Mahayana practitioners, we're working on behalf of all sentient beings, trying to reach enlightenment in order to enlighten them. Okay, so then again, let's just do a couple of minutes of meditation on the breath. Just to calm and center our mind. So let's just remind ourselves of our bodhicitta. I think the purpose of my life is to lead all sentient beings from suffering to enlightenment. In order to do that, first I have to reach enlightenment myself. That depends upon my completing the path to enlightenment. And in order to do that, I need a guide, someone who's been that way before, a spiritual teacher, a guru. Therefore, I'm going to study the Buddha's teachings on guru devotion in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Okay, so nice to see everybody again. I think this is our last one, right? Sixth session of 6.
Yes, it is.
So we've talked about, why we need a guru and what sort of person we need to look for to, the qualities of the person that we need to seek to determine whether someone, a teacher, would be right for us. Is it to establish a guru-disciple relationship, which is a very specific thing and very special thing. So we have to be careful in choosing to choose the right person, and then we also have to know the qualities we need to develop within ourselves to be a good disciple, so that the partnership really works. I don't think you have to ask a teacher, will you be my teacher? This is what I've kind of come to understand over the years. You can be in a large gathering of people, thousands of people taking teaching from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and you can make a determination that he is your guru, and you see yourself as a disciple of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, even though you might never have met him in person. I think, as I've said a number of times, the Lamas never really gave these teachings in the very early days, in the early 70s. And I think it was my second time at Laudo in 1974 that I actually, at Laudo, I went to see Rinpoche in his cave and asked him if he would be my guru. So he didn't sort of laugh or anything, but so he said, "Well, let's try." He said, "I'll try. You try from your side, and I'll try from my side." So I think over the years he's been trying pretty hard. I don't think I've really done my part. But anyway, that was what he said. So it's definitely, there's sort of some kind of mutual commitments made. But you don't have to do it that way. So then we also talked about the 8 advantages of having a teacher and the 8 disadvantages of not having a teacher and not maintaining a proper relationship. So I thought for this class we'd look at the last 2 main outlines. So so there are 4 main topics, as I mentioned: the advantages of properly relying on a spiritual guide, the disadvantages of not relying one or relying on one incorrectly. So then the last 2 outlines are how to rely on a spiritual guide by means of our thoughts, and how to rely on a spiritual guide by means of our actions. So there what have I done? Okay, I don't have the book to wave at you. Lama Zopa, I've waved it at you many times. Lama Zopa Rinpoche's Heart of the Path. So that's the most extent. Yes, that's the one. Thank you very much, Anna. So that's, as I've also said many times, the Bible on Guru devotion. So that's the most extensive teaching. And I don't know much. So what I try to do in these classes is introduce you to the topics in general, and then indicate which books might be the best for you to study in your own time, study and think about and meditate on. I mean, that's the whole practice. So So anyway, those are in the, what do you call it, Mary? There's a PDF of supporting materials or something?
Yes, there usually is a PDF of supporting materials, but I do have a question about last week's.
What was last week?
Last week, I just wanted to verify, and thank you very much, Dr. Nick, the books for the guru-student relationship based on the level of practitioner. For a newer student, I have Foundation of Buddhist Practice, and then I also have Wise Teacher, Wise Student. Those are for more newer level of practitioner, right? And then that one's more Vajrayana, correct?
Yes. What was the first one you mentioned?
Foundation of Buddhist Path for a newer student.
Oh yes, there's yes, this book, this
Right.
series of books by His Holiness and Venerable Thupten Chodron.
Okay.
So
And then
there
also,
are a couple of chapters in this. This is, sorry, go ahead.
And then also I have for a newer student, Wise Teacher, Wise Student, Alex Berzin's book.
Yeah, this one. Snowline book.
And then,
yeah.
Okay, Snowline, okay. And then for more of an advanced practitioners, I've got Heart of the Path.
Yep.
And then the teacher-student relationship.
What's the students?
Okay.
Oh, that's the Jamgon Kongtrul, yeah. And then there's this one, this commentary, Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on 50 verses of Guru devotion. And then on our website, lamayeshe.com, there's a couple of commentaries, a short one and a long one by Geshe Ngawandagi on 50 verses of Guru devotion. I think I probably sent you the links to those at some point.
Briefs, yes. Thank you
so I think, you know, this is years of study and meditation. So obviously we can't cover much in these short classes. So it's just kind of an overview, and just to encourage you to find a teacher and know how to practice with that teacher. And that's the best way to make the most rapid progress on the path to enlightening all sentient beings. So, so in this book that I'm going to be looking at today, Geshe Tekchog, again edited by Venerable Thupten Chodron, actually. This Geshe Jampa Tekchog's teachings on 37 practices of the Bodhisattva. So there's there's a very nice chapter summarizing this topic of Guru devotion in this book. Transforming adversity into joy and courage. I think that's still the title. It might have been reissued under a different title, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's Geshe Jampa Tekchog and Thupten Chodron on 37 practices. So this is the outline called How to Rely on Our Spiritual Mentors Through Thought. So there's through thought and through action. So this is thought. Relying on our mentors through thought involves cultivating two attitudes, faith and respect. So the first, faith, is developed by seeing our spiritual mentor as the Buddha. And the second, respect and gratitude, is by remembering his or her kindness. These points, especially the first, are very difficult to gain experience of, and confidence arises only after meditating on them for a long time. As we gradually work on these points without pushing ourselves or rushing, it's important to try to always see our spiritual mentors in a positive light, not to pick faults or feel superior. Such critical attitudes can easily arise if we notice that we know more about science, politics, and computers than they do, or if they don't agree with our ideas of how things should be done. I took my mother to meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama once, 1977. I was in Delhi trying to start a centre Lama Yeshe told me to do, Tushita Mahayana Meditation Centre. And mother came over I think she was on her way to Europe and from Australia, and she stopped in Delhi. And then I took her up to Dharamsala, and she met His Holiness Ling Rinpoche and His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche, and I took her to see His Holiness. And in those days, it was not that hard. She had a 45-minute private interview with His Holiness, and I was kind of sitting in the back there while she was talking to His Holiness about things. I wanted to tape it, but His Holiness Assistant Tenzin Geshe wouldn't let me. I don't know why. Anyway, afterwards we came out, and she said, you know, if he's an enlightened being, why does he wear glasses? So it was like, I can't remember what I said, but it might have been, you know, just so that people who have to wear glasses will have faith in him too, you know. So, and that's what His Holiness often cites as the kindness of the Guru, or the Buddha rather, appearing in an ordinary body, so that we can relate to that person. And you know, I think if our teacher appeared like in a body of light, sort of emanating rainbows, and you know, talking about what it was like in samsara 5 million years ago and stuff like that, be hard for us to think, kind of feel that we could become like that, you know. But the kindness in showing an ordinary body, which means showing, as Rinpoche says in Heart of the Path, you know, is showing mistakes, is appearing to be imperfect. So this is kind of done intentionally, so that we can relate according to our karma and our level of mind. So, you know, we have to see that as the kindness shown by the enlightened being appearing in ordinary form as a teacher, showing mistakes and stuff. But then it's up to us not to focus on the mistakes, but to see them as skillful means, you know, just to help students relate, like wearing glasses. When our confidence and gratitude become stronger and stronger, it's a sign that our analytical meditation on these topics is working. In the beginning, we can do a glance meditation on relying on a spiritual mentor. Here we recognize what properly relying on him or her means, what points to reflect on to do this, and their order. After our glance meditation, so, you know, glance meditation, we just look at the whole thing. Like glance meditation on the Lam Rim is, you know, these short teachings of 10, 15, 20 verses that cover the whole Lam Rim from beginning to end, like 3 principal aspects of the path, or foundation of all good qualities, or a longer one, you know, the Lam Rim part of at the end of the Guru Puja, or you familiar with Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's practice called the method to transform suffering life into happiness and enlightenment? So there's a glance meditation. Actually, that was the first one that Rinpoche gave us. That was in the very first edition of the Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun, the Lam Rim textbook compiled from Rinpoche's teachings that was used in the early Kopan courses by Losang Jinpa Dorji Chung. Is his name? I think so. There's a glance meditation. So anyway, you know, you see, read the whole path to enlightenment, see the whole path at a glance. Just read these few verses and it shows you where you are and where you're going to go. So once we've looked at that, then we go back to the beginning and then we read it more slowly, think about each point, and then we meditate on it to gain experience of each of the points. So after our glance meditation, we slowly reflect on each point. So that's not just the Lam Rim, that can be any of the topics, such as this one, the Guru Devotion, or perfect human rebirth, impermanence and death, so on and so forth. When great unshakable confidence in the spiritual guide arises, feeling that he or she is not separate from the Buddhas and is kinder than all the Buddhas, then the experience is said to be effortless. It may take us a long time to generate these feelings, depending on past prayers, imprints, the thickness of negativities and obscurations, and our karmic relationship with our spiritual teacher. However much we can generate them, they will inspire and give energy to the rest of our Dharma practice, enabling us to integrate the Dharma into our mind stream with ease and joy. So training ourselves to have confidence in the spiritual mentors has three parts. The reason it's necessary to see our mentor as Buddha, the reason we're able to see the mentor as Buddha, and the way of looking at the mentor as Buddha. So it's important to see our mentor as Buddhas because we'll only profit from this attitude. The 8 advantages of properly relying on a spiritual guide, we mentioned those before, show the benefit we'll receive. Seeing our teachers in this way helps us to practice. For example, if we see our teachers as ordinary person, when we listen to teachings, we may think, what do they know? Why should I practice this? They're just saying this because they think they're important or because they want me to offer them something. With such an attitude, we will clearly not be motivated to practice what they teach. And, and I think it was very skillful of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche at the beginning not to give these very explicit teachings on Guru devotion. I can't even remember when I first heard Rinpoche teach on. So Lama Yeshe never really taught according to traditional, very rarely, according to traditional Lam Rim outlines. Lama's teachings were much kind of more free-flowing and just coming from his incredible reservoir of enlightened knowledge and just telling the people who telling people in front of him exactly what they needed to know at that moment. Many times, I'd be sitting in a teaching with Lama, listening, kind of completely sort of enthralled by what he's saying. And then at the end it'd come out and someone said, well, what did he talk about? I couldn't even remember what he talked about. It was, we come out from Rinpoche, he's following the outline, so it's much easier to know, if you're a little bit familiar with him, you know what he's talking about, With Lama, it was like so interesting. And we've edited a lot of Lama's general talks. You'll find in the free books that we published from Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive, or they're online. And if you read those, you'll see what I mean. It's just flowed, So, those of us coming into the Dharma in the 70s with no background, no understanding, no culture of living in a Buddhist society, it was we would have been very skeptical, just like Geshe Shok says here, they're saying this because they think they're important or they want me to offer them something. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I read Gongchen Rinpoche's advice on guru practice, this Himalayan yogi who came to Kopan and gave a couple of talks to us. And he said when he asked his teacher in Tibet for teachings on guru devotion, even then the teacher said, no, I don't want to give you those. You should study some texts that explain about that, because if I give you the teachings on guru devotion, you'll just think I'm sort of aggrandizing myself. You're saying that I'm a Buddha, because that's what the teachings say. You have to see the teacher as a Buddha. So I think we would have been very skeptical if, knowing next to nothing about Tibetan Buddhism or Buddhism at all, the Lamas started giving us these teachings that we are more suited to receive now after all these decades. On the other hand, if we realize that even if Shakyamuni Buddha himself were here at this very moment teaching us, he wouldn't say anything different from what our mentor is saying now. So if we realize that, then we'll pay close attention and be interested in enthusiastic practice what our mentor teaches. By developing the confidence that regards our spiritual guides as Buddhas, then whether or not they are, we profit from the relationship in the same way as if they were. It all depends on our own attitude. This practice of seeing the spiritual guides as Buddhas is done with those whom we have chosen to be our teachers. We do not have to think of everyone who is a Buddha's teacher as a Buddha. We can see our spiritual teachers as Buddhas because it's possible to train our mind to recognize and focus on their many good qualities and to think less and less about their faults until we don't notice the faults at all. For example, when we have a girlfriend or boyfriend, we easily get into the habit of seeing only their good qualities and ignoring their faults. In the daytime, there are stars shining, but they are outshone by the sun. Similarly, if we focus more and more on our mentor's good qualities, they will outshine the faults. Of course, with a girlfriend and boyfriend, if it's going well, then we see the good qualities and not the faults. But then when the relationship goes south, then it's the other way around. Then the faults are like the sun outshining the stars. And then we see more and more faults until it's, goodbye. There are 4 specific reasons which help us look at our spiritual mentors as Buddhas. So that's not the way it should be with a spiritual teacher. There are 4 specific reasons that help us look at our spiritual mentors as Buddhas. First, Vajradhara, the form the Buddha took when teaching Tantra, said that in future times he would take ordinary forms and manifest as spiritual masters, and that followers should regard such masters as Vajradhara himself. The Vajradhara, or Dorji Chang in Tibetan, it's like the primordial Buddha. The second reason, the spiritual guide is the agent of all the Buddha's actions. Although there are many enlightened beings, our minds are too obscured to be able to be aware of them. It's through our spiritual mentors that we have access to the Buddha's teachings, to the Buddha's blessings, inspiration, and positive influence. For example, although the sun has enormous power, we cannot use it to burn anything. But if we have a magnifying glass, we can focus its rays and start a fire. In the same way, The spiritual guide is like a magnifying glass, focusing the rays of the actions of all the Buddhas for our benefit. Third, our spiritual guides do the work of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas by working for sentient beings right now. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have committed themselves to benefit us sentient beings and to lead us from suffering to enlightenment. We cannot recognize them around us, but there is no way they would renege on their word. If we examine who is doing the work of the enlightened ones promised, if we examine who is doing the work the enlightened ones promised to do for us, we find that it's our spiritual mentors. They are the ones teaching us what to practice and avoid on the path. If Shakyamuni Buddha were here in front of us, he wouldn't be doing anything other than what our spiritual mentors are doing, teaching, guiding, and inspiring us on the path. Therefore, we can conclude that our mentors are the Buddha. And fourth, what appears to our mind is not reliable. An enlightened being can appear in many forms, as a beggar, a dog, or a queen. We cannot say just because our spiritual guides look ordinary that they are, even if they wear glasses. Appearances are deceptive. For example, it sometimes seems that the train we are in is moving, when in fact it's the train on the next platform that moves. When a torch is spun around in the dark, we see a circle of light, but it's an illusion. Our senses and mind are often deceived by what appears to them. When we feel that our spiritual guides are just ordinary people who don't know much, we should remember how easy it is to be wrong when we rely only on superficial appearances. Sometimes people wonder, if my teachers are Buddhas, why don't they show their clairvoyant powers and special abilities so that we'll know that they're Buddhas and develop faith? First, our minds are very obscured, and even if a Nirmanakaya Buddha, so Nirmanakaya is emanation body, if the Nirmanakaya Buddha appeared in front of us, we would not be able to recognize that form as a Buddha. Just as our ears do not have the ability to hear some sounds that dogs can hear, our minds at present do not have the ability to see the Buddha's qualities directly. Secondly, if we did see our teachers with a body made of light and witnessed their clairvoyant powers, we might get distracted by marveling and talking about it. We might miss the point and think that the path is to gain these qualities and forget that our goal is to develop a kind heart and wisdom. By appearing in ordinary form, our teachers enable us to observe how they handle problems, and we can learn from their example. Seeing how they practice, we're inspired to do the same. At first, it may seem strange to us to develop respect for our teachers by remembering their kindness, because we think of respect arising from seeing someone's excellent quality and gratitude arising from seeing their kindness. Yet, when we feel very grateful to someone we do tend to admire and respect him or her, training in respect or gratitude by remembering the kindness of our spiritual guides has 4 points. 1, in general, our spiritual mentors are kinder to us than all the Buddhas, and in particular, even kinder than Shakyamuni Buddha. Although all enlightened beings are equally wise and compassionate, we consider Shakyamuni Buddha to be the kindest to us because only he came to earth during our time and gave teachings which benefit us to this day. But even he passed away and is not directly helping us now. Only our spiritual guides are here for us now, so they are kinder to us than even Shakyamuni Buddha. So there's this story that a long time ago, when Shakyamuni Buddha was a bodhisattva, and he was there with a whole, hundreds or thousands of other bodhisattvas getting teachings from a Buddha in a Pure Land. I don't remember which Buddha or which Pure Land, but so this sort of top Buddha was saying, okay, guys, all you bodhisattvas, I need someone for a special mission. And so someone asked, well, what is it? He said, well, there's this place called Earth, which is where the sentient beings are very ignorant and undisciplined and unruly. And I need one of you to go down there to turn the wheel of Dharma. So all these bodhisattvas, these brave bodhisattvas, like, oh, not me, They all kind of shrank back in their lotuses. And then finally, the bodhisattva who was going to become Guru Shakyamuni Buddha put up his hand and said, well, okay, I guess I'll go. So all the others were like so amazed and marveled at his incredible bravery and compassion that he would go to such a terrible, dark place to try and establish the Dharma. So he went, and here we are. So I'm not sure if I've got this story right now, but even in Tibet, Lama Yeshe was telling like his fellow students that eventually he'd like to go to the West, or he'd like to go to some difficult countries and try and bring the Dharma to the people there who'd never heard it. So I don't think they thought he was brave. I think they probably just thought he was crazy. But in fact, it was... I mean, Lama's bravery was really amazing. He hardly spoke English. And yet he, even from the early days of meeting Zina and then coming to Nepal, and, Zina was kind of asked him to give these Sunday talks. And, it must have been such a tall order to try and give this kind of profound Buddhist teachings to people who'd never heard them before in a language that you barely knew. It was like, but somehow he did, and he managed, and he learned quickly. He learned from the students. He learned from their questions, and if you look at a couple of the transcripts from those very, very early talks, which we do have, it must have been such a struggle, but anyway, it became the basis of everything we're doing now. So that's why, so Lama is even kinder to us than Shakyamuni Buddha, because, we didn't have the karma to be born at the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, and we don't have the karma for, a clearly fully enlightened being to appear before us. So the Buddhas appear according to our karma in the form of human teachers, and in that they're extremely kind. So the second, training in respect or gratitude by remembering the kindness of our spiritual guides has these 4 points. First is kinder than all the Buddhas, including Shakyamuni Buddha. The second is they're kind in teaching us the Dharma. Our teachers show us how to avoid unfortunate rebirths, how to break free of cyclic existence, and how to attain enlightenment. to make our lives the most meaningful for all beings. We should feel more gratitude for this kindness than we feel towards a doctor who cures us of a dreadful illness, or towards a person who helps us out of a frightening situation. Without people to show us the path, what would our life be like? Without their having taught us the Dharma, what would happen to us at the time of death and afterwards? Three, they are kind by inspiring and blessing our mind stream. Blessing our mind stream means transforming our minds into something better. So that's what a blessing is. Something that improves your mind, something that helps your mind, something that brings your mind closer to the Dharma. This is not accomplished only by direct teachings. When Atisha was old, Domtomba used to carry his ex-wound out for him, and as a result, he gained clairvoyant powers. So it said that, when Atisha became very old and was nearly dying and was lying in bed incontinent and, feces was everywhere, and like Domtomba used to just clean it up by hand, without even the thought that this is kind of dirty or unpleasant entering his mind. So he had a very pure view. One time when the Lamas were traveling in 75, Lama gave a course near Melbourne in Australia. A place called Ramana. And we published those teachings in a little book called Ego, Attachment and Liberation. So it was a sort of a campground that students had rented, and might have been an old Boy Scout camp or something. Anyway, and they rented a trailer, like we call it a caravan, little trailer for Lama to stay in. I think the students stayed in dormitories or something. And then one of the students' job was to empty the toilet can from Lama's caravan. So I remember he was very disappointed because he thought that Lama's excrement might be gold, but he was his impure view just saw it as feces. So I think he's still working on that. Venerable Gyatso, Adrian Feldman? Venerable Gyatso founded Nalanda Monastery. He developed that, and then he went to Australia and he founded another monastery called Thupten Shedrup Ling, where this big great stupa that they're building in Australia, the Great Stupa of Universal Compassion. Have you seen about that? Some modelled on the Gyantse Kumbum, the great stupa near Shigatse in Tibet. Just like that. I mean, it is just such an amazing structure. If you look at it, it's kind of in the middle of, well, not in the middle of nowhere, but it's in fairly barren land. And there's also a Dharma centre there, a Tisha centre, and Venerable Gyatso has established this monastery on that property as well. So this was his brother I'm talking about, who was disappointed that Lama's kaka wasn't gold, in his view. So Domtomba was not like that. He didn't see Lama Tisha's pipi and kaka as disgusting, or he just cleaned him and carried it out. And as a result, he developed clairvoyant powers, apparently. Tilopa hit Naropa in the face with a sand mandala. So we talked a lot about Tilopa and Naropa. And I think we linked to the biographies, didn't we? Tilopa hit Naropa in the face with a sand mandala, causing Naropa to experience a deep concentration. So they were walking through some desert land, Naropa and Tilopa once. And Tilopa said to Naropa, pee on the ground here, pee on this sand. So Naropa was like, what? Tilopa says, well, no, actually Naropa was such a good disciple, he probably didn't have to be told twice. So Naropa said, pee on the sand. So Naropa peed on the sand. And then Tilopa got the wet sand and he made it like into a, he says he hit him in the face with a sand mandala. I think the way I heard it was that he picked up this sand like a snowball or something and he smashed it into Naropa's face. And then Naropa, right before Naropa appeared, the whole Heruka Chakra Samvara mandala in the sky. Anyway, maybe you do your own research on that one. Causing Naropa to experience deep concentration. Tilopa said that to gain results from meditation, we should make requests to our spiritual guides, and then the results will come easily. So I think, I'm not sure I mentioned this story. Rinpoche told it a few times, that one time Naropa came into Tilopa's room, and Naropa and Tilopa manifested the deity of Chakra Samvara just there in the room, with all the arms and legs and heads and, this kind of incredible three-dimensional vision in light of the deity, of their yidam, their mind-bound deity, their principal deity. And so Tilopa said, well, to Naropa, who are you going to prostrate to first, me or the deity? So Naropa thought, oh, well, I see Tilopa every day, but I very rarely see the deity. So he prostrated to the deity first. So, Tilopa was like, yeah, but pressed the fail buzzer, said, without the guru, there is no Buddha. So the message was, did I tell this? Did I mention this? That, I went to see His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche, who was considered by the lamas to be a manifestation of Chakra Samvara, of Heruka. And I was supposed to do a couple of retreats, Mahakala retreat or Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga retreat in Dharamsala in 76, in the summer there, after we were kicked out of Nepal. And so I went to see him to get some advice on retreat. And I said, I have these two retreats, the Mahakala retreat and the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga retreat. Which one should I do first? And he kind of looked really surprised and said, oh, Guru always comes first. So I did the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga retreat, took 6 weeks, and then we had to go back to Nepal. So I didn't have time to do the Mahakala retreat. And that's still a karmic debt hanging over me. I still haven't done the 2-week retreat on Mahakala. But I did the Guru Yoga. So, they said because of that mistake, Naropa wasn't able to receive enlightenment in his lifetime, but he received it after he passed away in the intermediate state. So apparently you can become enlightened in the bardo if you don't quite make it in this life. Tilopa said that to gain results from meditation, we should make requests to our spiritual guides, and then the results will come easily. When we continuously and sincerely request inspiration from our spiritual guides, we'll definitely get results. Our mind becomes more open and we experience the Dharma more easily. Our spiritual teachers inspire us by being good role models. We can learn about the Dharma simply by observing how they practice in their daily life. So I often used to think, when you see the Lamas, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche together, Lama was always kind of so outgoing and ebullient and laughing and informal, whereas Rinpoche was always very strict and always wore his robes very correctly. And when he was in Lama's presence, he didn't really speak unless he was spoken to, and remained very humble, and seemed, very strict in his practice, adhering to all the rules very carefully. Whereas Lama was rules, shmuls, It was like, and I think it was like Rinpoche was just in his being, he was showing the path, and in his being, Lama was showing the result. That once you're enlightened, once you've completed the path, you can do anything you like. Everything, whatever you do without thinking, it's like just spontaneously. It's all done for the benefit of sentient beings. But to get there, you have to be very careful not to make mistakes and to do your practice diligently. So that's what it says here, our spiritual teachers inspire us by being good role models. We can learn about the Dharma simply by observing how they practice in their daily life. So I think some of the students thought they could go straight to the Lama Yeshe level and skip the Lama Zopa level, but that's not how it works. Of course, some of us haven't even got to the Lama Zopa level yet either. So, long way to go. As Lama used to say, long way, baby. Remember those Virginia Slims ads? Well, there's a song, isn't it? You came a long way from St. Louis. Came a long way from St. Louis. And the line is, came a long way from St. Louis, but baby, you've got a long way to go. So, so then it came in the Virginia Slims ads. You've come a long way, baby. But, now you're able to smoke Virginia Slims. Go figure. But Lama latched onto that. He used to, but he wouldn't say you've come a long way, baby. He would just say, as he did, abbreviated. He would say, long way, baby. But he said long way, baby. But what he implied was you've got a long way to go. Long way, baby. Fourth, our spiritual guides are kind by providing for our material needs. In the monasteries, teachers often care for the needs of their students by sharing the offerings they receive. However, for lay students, this is not the case because they have jobs and incomes. Though our teacher may not be kind to us in this way, we should remember that he or she takes care of us by teaching the Dharma, and that this is infinitely more valuable than material goods. Their gift of the Dharma is the supreme gift. There's a funny relationship between the monks and the Western monks and nuns in those early days and the lay students, because we all came from the same place. All the monks and nuns, we weren't put into monasteries when we were 6 years old, like in Tibet. And so, the lay students felt that they were equal to the monks and nuns, that we were all just Dharma practitioners, and they're doing it that way and we're doing it this way. And this, I think, also this diminishing the importance of the monks and nuns, the ordained students, was probably more obvious in America than other countries, as I recall, And at Vajrapani Institute, our first American center, they used to talk about the robed Sangha and the not robed Sangha. So we're all Sangha, but some wear robes and some don't, as if the robes was the only difference, which is completely wrong, obviously. When we started the Sangha community in Nepal at Kopan, we had our own, Lama gave us the old house down the back of the property. So we had our own gompa and our own accommodation, and we had our own kitchen down there, and we used to take turns in cooking. So two of the monks and nuns would cook for the other, I don't know, there were 12 or 14 of us there at the time. And one day, and there were a couple of lay students living on the property helping out. There was one guy called Stephen, American guy, who was helping Lama with the garden at Kopan, the main part of the monastery. And one day, one of the Western Sangha cooks made banana bread. And so all the monks and nuns were having out in the garden near outside our gompa, having their banana bread, and I came, and so it was sort of down, and there was a hill, and there steps leading down to that part of the Kopan, and where the monks and nuns were out sitting eating the banana bread, and this guy Stephen was there looking at it, and I came upon him, and he turned to me and said, I was a monk, and he turned to me and said, "Look at them with their banana bread, some humble Sangha." He was very upset that he hadn't been offered some banana bread, and it would have been kind to offer him banana bread, but just the way he had just some humble Sangha, look at them down there eating their banana bread. He was just left up eating chapatis with the Tibetan monks. But the Dharma that the Lamas teach is infinitely more valuable than banana bread. So those were how we rely on our spiritual mentors through thought. The next part is how to rely on our spiritual mentors through action. So there are three ways of relying on our spiritual guides through actions. One, making offerings. Due to their excellent qualities and their kindness to us, our teachers are powerful objects for creating good karma. So it helps our practice to give them offerings. Rinpoche told us the story of Kunu Lama Rinpoche when people came to see him and made offerings, either it was money or whatever it was, he would just throw it on the floor behind him, to show his detachment from receiving offerings. And he didn't want offerings. We had a couple of teachings from him, and did we do that? Did we do Foundation of All Good Qualities? Did I do that with you guys? No. No, I think it was another
scheduled. Put that in the chat box. It's scheduled for June. It's scheduled for June. It's scheduled for June.
Oh, I'm back again in June? Me, I'm doing that?
Yes, you are. June, yes.
I'll have to cancel my vacation plans. Okay, so we'll talk more about Kurukulla Lama then, but I think I did it for Kurukulla Center. Anyway, he lived extremely ascetic life. He was one of the most ascetic looking people I'd ever met. And whenever people made, and so we had teachings, the Western monks and nuns had teachings with him, and we tried to make offerings, and he said, I don't take offerings, especially from monks and nuns. But when people came to give him offerings, he used to throw them on the floor behind him, it's like, yeah, whatever. So, so the offerings are, we make the offerings to benefit us, not to sort of enhance the teacher's wealth or anything. In addition, our teachers need food, clothes, shelter, and medicine. If we students do not provide for them, they would have to get jobs, and it would be difficult for them to find time to teach us. Well, okay. I guess Kurukulla Lama was so ascetic he didn't need to find a job or accept the offerings. The second way how to rely through action is offering service and respect. Our teachers often need help with their various projects to benefit others. Thus, we serve sentient beings by serving our spiritual guides. When we offer to help, it allows our teachers to do what they're good at, teaching and counseling people in the Dharma. So that was kind of my immediate reaction after my first meditation course, that I didn't know really exactly what I could do to help, but I knew I just really wanted to stick around and help the lamas with whatever it was they were trying to do. And at that point, of course, there was only Kopan, and there were just 20 or 30 young Sherpa monks there, and we also had at that time Tushita Retreat Center in Dharamsala that Lama had bought, that old building where His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche first stayed when, after His Holiness moved his whole Tibetan government operation to Dharamsala. So Lama Yeshe bought his root guru's house, which obviously had a lot of blessings, because His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche had lived there for, I don't know, a few years anyway. And at that time, His Holiness was staying at a place called the Swag Ashram, which was, I don't know if any of you have been to Tushita in Dharamsala. There's a Swag Ashram, I don't know what it was before, but it was very close to Tushita. So His Holiness first stayed there. So His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche got the house nearby. And just not far from there also was His Holiness Ling Rinpoche's house. So later, His Holiness moved down to where the Tibetan temple is and where his current residence is. And then way down the hill further, they established the Tibetan library. So His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche moved down there. And he lived next door to the library. So, yeah, I didn't know what I could do, but I just knew I wanted to help. And so my first job really was working with Rinpoche, sort of editing some of his teachings, and it kind of took off from there. But you know, what we're all doing now, running these different centres, is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. You know, offering service, helping our teachers with their various projects to benefit others. So, you know, the Lama's job is to enlighten all sentient beings, and the best way to do that is by giving them the Dharma, and they can't reach everybody in person, but by establishing these Dharma centres, we're helping the Lamas reach people through through the Dharma. And so it's really beneficial to support the centres however we can, you know, by working at them or by supporting them financially, or by letting other people know about them. I mean, you know, so many different things we can do. So, you know, this is one of the ways we serve our gurus, through action. So the third thing we can do, which is, anyway, third is practicing the Dharma in accordance with their instructions. This is the supreme offering to make. Our spiritual guides teach us the Dharma for our happiness. When we practice what they instruct, they're delighted because they know that we're helping ourselves and others by doing this, by practicing the teachings. So those are the three ways of serving through action: making offerings, offering service and respect, and practicing Dharma according to the instructions. When we have strong confidence, trust, respect, and gratitude for our spiritual guides, the path is generated more quickly in our mind stream. That is the purpose of developing confidence and gratitude. As mentioned above, gaining realizations of these is difficult. When we feel that there is no mentor apart from the Buddha, and there is no Buddha apart from our mentor, that is, when the two seem inseparable, then we've gained this realization. So it takes a while, you know, as I said before, the two hardest realizations to have are the realization of karma and the realization of that the Guru is a Buddha. So we need to work at it over a period of time. In the meantime, there are a lot of other more fundamental topics that we can gain realization of, such as perfect human rebirth, impermanence and death, refuge, and so on. So you know, in terms of gaining realizations, that's maybe where we should put most of our effort at the beginning. If we've received teachings from many spiritual guides, we should first train with the one that we have the most faith in, the one who seems to us to be the best, our root mentor, our root guru. So we can have more than one root guru, but the definition of a root guru is the teacher who has had the most effect on turning your mind towards the Dharma. So Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa Rinpoche always used to say that their root guru is His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche. But I don't know if Lama met His Holiness Trishul Rinpoche in Tibet. Seems unlikely. In Tibet, things were very different, and people rarely saw His Holiness the Dalai Lama, let alone hung out with him, almost like we can do, And I think his tutors were probably even less publicly prominent. And I'm pretty sure Rinpoche didn't, because he just stayed in the 3 years that he was in Tibet. He was in southern Tibet, at Domo, not far from the southern border of Tibet. So, and then even when they came to India, I don't think they had much contact with His Holiness Trishul Rinpoche. And then when they went to Nepal and were at Kopan, they took teachings from him sometimes in Dharamsala, but not very often. And yet they had so many other teachers. And I always would have thought for Lama Zopa Rinpoche that maybe Lama Yeshe would be his root guru, since they spent all that time together, and he was the one that seemed to have the most influence on Rinpoche's life. But they both said His Holiness Trishul Rinpoche was their root guru. So I'm not quite sure how they came to that determination. Generally, it's so for me it was clear. There were two root gurus, Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa. They were my only teachers the first year or so, and definitely had the most effect on my mind. Then, when we have some feeling of confidence and gratitude towards our root teacher, we spread it to the other teachers. We develop the thought that all our spiritual teachers are the same, that they are emanations of our root teacher. If our meditation on this topic has gone well, we see our mentors like waves of the ocean of the Dharmakaya, of the enlightened mind. And when they die, they seem to dissolve back into the Buddha, like a wave sinking back into the sea. If we think in this way, the realization has been well generated. Incorrectly relying on spiritual mentors means having no confidence in them and developing wrong views about them. Here, wrong view means that when something about our teacher appears bad to us, we actually believe it to be the truth and think that he or she is bad. We should remind ourselves that the way things appear to us is not reliable. For example, if a student likes to go to bed early, he may consider his teacher making him practice until late in the evening a fault. But if a student likes to stay up late, But if a student likes to stay up late, he sees the same quality as something wonderful in the teacher. The teacher makes him practice late into the night. I'm not sure if I told this story, but after the Enlightened Experience celebration in '82, big gathering that Lama put together. Initially, he wanted to, by 1982, there were over 100 monks and nuns in the FPMT, and they were scattered all over the world. We had quite a few centres at that point, and we had so the monks and nuns, especially after they ran out of money, couldn't stay in India and Nepal much longer. Then the lamas or Lama Yeshe would send them to different centres to help out there. And it was a blessing for the centres because it was kind of cheap labour, and it was good for the monk or nun because they had somewhere to stay and be supported, and help serve the teachers by serving the centre. So Lama, he wanted to bring all the monks and nuns together to give us the experience, the feeling of the international monastic community. And sort of as a byproduct of that, I think he wanted to kickstart Nalanda Monastery, which had sort of started in 81, but there very few people wanted to go there. And there wasn't a teaching program or anything much set up. So one of the benefits of the Enlightened Experience celebration, all these monks and nuns coming together, would be that people have the energy to go and really develop this monastic community in France. So we started organising this, so the first part of the Enlightened Experience celebration would be in Bodh Gaya in January, February 82, and then there'd be Tibetan New Year, and then after that we'd gather again in Dharamsala at Tushita, and there'd be a special teaching program with His Holiness Song Rinpoche. He'd give initiation and teachings on Haruka Bodhi Mandala and Chud and Guya Samaja. So then when the lay students found out that this was being organised, they all started clabbering, "Oh, we're Dharma students too. Oh, we want to come, we want to come." And the first Lama said, "No, this is just for the monks and nuns." But then the people were crying, "Oh, we want to go." So then he relented. So then, we let some of the lay students in. So it turned out there were probably a couple of hundred people. Over the 5 or 6 months that the whole thing took, there were probably more than 300 people came through. All the monks and nuns pretty much did the whole thing, and some of the lay people did the whole thing as well. Trying to remember why I'm telling a story. What I just said has really got nothing to do with the story. But so after it was over, then a bunch of us did a group, the Sangha, the monks and nuns did a group retreat together, Guya Samaja retreat at Tushita. And the lay people went off and did their in Dalhousie, I think. Rob Priest led the lay people's retreat. And then after that, then Lama, so then after the retreat, Lama took off and he went to other places. He went to Tibet and did other stuff. And Rinpoche was left in retreat at Tushita. And I was supposed to be working with him on Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun, making a new edition of the book. So did we talk about the scorpions? Yeah. So the scorpions, you remember the scorpions? So so one of these nights I went to Rinpoche to do the work. So I'd go up in the evening and he'd tell me to come back. And then one night we started work at 11 or 12 or something, quite late, and we went till 1 or 2 in the morning. And then we finished. And then I was really exhausted. I went to my room, and Rinpoche said, as I was leaving, he said, "Oh, I'll be doing Guru Puja starting around 5 or 6 if you want to come back for that." It was like, and I just lost it. It was like, my voice went up like a couple of octaves. And I was like, it's okay for you who doesn't need any sleep, but, you know, I can't function on 3 hours sleep. So you won't be seeing me at the puja. I mean, something like that. So that's what I was talking about here. I didn't see him as bad. I just saw myself as bad, but I still got pretty shrill about the whole thing. So if a student likes to go to bed early, he may consider his teacher making him practice until late in the evening a fault. If a student likes to get up early, he will appreciate the teacher making him do that. But, you know, like my mother, I used to like to stay in bed till noon. So, you know. Okay. We can think of many examples from our own experience to illustrate this point. If we have studied certain philosophical texts, such as mind and awareness, you're doing that with Don at the moment, Lorik, mind and mental factors? Or are you doing tenets?
No, he did. No, that's Venerable George. Venerable George's tenets with Don. Don, he's doing Mahayana paths and grounds.
Oh, that one. Okay. Has he done mind and awareness, Lorik? Mind and mental factors?
2 years ago.
Oh, yeah. If you study that text, we know that much of the time what appears to our mind does not entirely accord with reality. While developing our faith and respect in our teachers, we must also keep in mind that if a teacher instructs us to do something which runs counter to the general teachings of the Buddha, we should not do it. If a teacher acts in a way that is abusive or unethical, we should not follow his example. In neither case do we need to get angry. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama suggests, we can keep a respectful distance from them, yet still appreciate what they taught us that helped us along the path. So, you know, that's what we've discussed about, you know, if we've made a Dharma connection with a teacher and then later on we're not sure if we still want to follow that teacher, we don't get angry, we don't disrespect them, but we just keep a distance with respect and appreciate what they did teach us before. In other words, we don't need to negate everything positive about the person simply because of one aspect of their character. So as we talked before about the three kinds of teacher, you know, the Hinayana teacher or the Mahayana Sutra teacher or the Vajrayana teacher. If the teacher instructs us to do something which runs counter to the general teachings of the Buddha, we should not do it. So that's the first level of teacher. The second level, the Mahayana teacher, we're allowed to question it respectfully, politely, but if a teacher still insists that it's something we should do, even if we think it runs counter to the general teachings, we should do it. So it's another reason why we have to be very careful that we pick the right teacher, that the teacher has the wisdom to tell us to do something which appears to us to run counter to the Buddha's general teachings. Of course, we could be wrong in making that assessment, but and then if it's a Vajrayana teacher, then even whatever the teacher tells us to do, we should do, like pee in the sand, you know, without question, you know. So that's even more important. When we have choosing a Vajrayana guru, you know, we have to be very, very careful to make sure we don't make a mistake. This discussion on how to rely on our spiritual mentors applies to all of our teachers, not just to those who are famous or those who are our Vajra masters. If we practice Tantra, it's important to regard our Vajra masters as Buddhas. In Tantra, we practice seeing all sentient beings as Buddhas and our environment as a Pure Land. So we certainly can't omit our Vajra master from this pure view by seeing him or her as an ordinary person. So in the Vajrayana, we see ourselves as a deity, we see other sentient beings as deities. So of course, and the deities are manifestations of the Buddha, the enlightened mind. So of course, our teachers also. Nevertheless, even for our teachers who are not our Vajra masters, it's helpful to see them as emanations of the Buddha and view them as working for the benefit of sentient beings. A positive attitude makes us receptive to what they teach and inspires us to practice, and we in turn reap the good results of our practice. We cannot actually know if someone is a Buddha or not, but we can decide to view our spiritual guide. We can decide to view our spiritual guides in that way. We say that the Dalai Lama, for example, is a Buddha, but how can we know for sure? I mean, he wears glasses. We are not capable of knowing, but we can recognize the benefits of having this view and decide to adopt it. Similarly, we cannot say that we do not know a bodhisattva, nor can we say that there are no dakinis in our town. Without clairvoyance and high realizations, we're not capable of knowing these things. Nevertheless, we can realize the advantage of thinking well of others and recognizing how much they benefit us. On that basis, we can decide to cultivate the attitude that they are, or at least might be, exceptional beings, bodhisattvas, dakinis, or Buddhas. If we have a positive attitude towards our spiritual guides, we will accomplish what we wish. For example, if we think that the room we live in is cramped, dark, and airless, we become unhappy. Thinking that it is just right, nice and spacious makes our mind happy. The room has not changed, simply our attitude has. But that makes all the difference. If we're unable to think of our spiritual guides as Buddhas, we can still consider them very important and precious. Even if this is an excellent way to purify negativities, and for this reason alone, it is a very important practice. So we recently published this book for Venerable Rabina, the book Rinpoche's Advice to Prisoners. You've seen that? Enjoy Life Liberated from the Inner Prison. So in that, Rinpoche is giving advice to prisoners. So he's saying similar things that even, just to change their view of their situation. He talks a lot about that. So, I think that's probably all I have to say right now on the topic. It's kind of been a bit all over the place, and naughty boy, I didn't follow exactly the FPMT's Discovering Buddhism guidelines, but it's the kind of rebel I am. Are there any questions about anything on this topic? We still have a little time left. Leah?
First, I want to thank you so much. It's a big topic. And two things I want to say. For me, it's kind of a scary topic. Because, and I wanted to ask you, have you ever met teachers and they seem so powerful that they just scare you or make you shy? That's kind of my question, because I have a great deal of shyness when it comes to many of my teachers. And I'm even shy in asking this question because I don't know why. I'm sure it's something I'm probably not looking at myself, but I feel very reluctant to ask a lot of questions or to communicate with my teachers sometimes.
Well, you know, I should be shy in answering the question, but I guess I'm not that shy. I've never really, well, there was, you know, I've, at this point, you know, I've met and received teachings from many teachers, you know, well over 30. And the one that was a little intimidating was Song Rinpoche. I don't know if you've seen, you probably didn't meet him, but I don't know if you've seen pictures of him. He's often, you know, very stern looking. He's the one with a little white goatee beard. He reputation for being very strict and a little scary, and he never pulled any punches. But you know, after a little while, that sort of you know, when you get to know him a little better, you see his humanity and his sense of humor, and so that sort of feeling of intimidation kind of went away. So nobody else really felt intimidating. So I don't. If I think that if you need to do some analytical meditation on who the intimidating teachers are, and really try to understand that they're really embodiments of love and compassion, and they have great wisdom, and however they appear to us according to our karma is still for our benefit. And I would think that the feeling would come more from yourself rather than from the teacher who's sort of trying to exert some authority over you. Of course, it depends. I don't know who these teachers are, and you know, not. So anyway, so another thing to remember is that even though that they're, you know, enlightened beings, that they were once not just like us, they were worse than us. They were once worms and cockroaches. But, you know, when they received a perfect human rebirth, they made the most of it. They practiced very diligently, and then they were able to receive further future perfect human rebirths, and then gradually continued practicing on the path until they reached the level that they're at now. And that rather than being intimidating, they're really inspirational, that they show us what we can become. And you've always got to remember that all sentient beings, not just you, have a pure, clear light nature of mind that's just temporarily obscured by delusions. And the delusions can be removed by practicing Dharma to reveal the innate, pure, clear light mind. So it's just a question of applying yourself to the practice and removing the obscurations. And in that way, you yourself will become an intimidating teacher. Also, it's very important to ask questions and not feel that others will think I'm stupid, or maybe everybody knows the answer to this question, so I shouldn't really answer, even though I don't know the answer myself. More often than not, other people are in the same boat as you. They have the same question, but they're also too unconfident. They don't have the confidence to ask it, either because the teacher will think they're stupid or the other students will think they're stupid. Or it's usually not like that at all. And anyway, welcome being thought stupid by other people. It's good to mash your ego like that. Lama Yeshe always said that as a teacher, my job is to mash my students' egos, and he, used to mash our egos at every opportunity. So, we're all baby Buddhas, so you should identify with that part. And if you read the sutras, you read the Heart Sutra all the time. There's Avalokiteshvara asking questions of the Buddha. So so if the great bodhisattvas can ask questions, the Buddha, so can we.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Doris, did you have something?
How did you know that?
You put your hand up before.
Did I?
No clairvoyance here.
I bet. I can relate to what Leah just said. My question is, what would be some of the things that we should not do with our teacher? Like, for example, I found out recently, like, don't hug a monastic. Like, I'm a hugger. I might have done that, if I met my teacher. So now I know not to do that. But is there anything else like that you could pass on?
Well, probably the nuns wouldn't mind you hugging them. So that's half of the monastics you can hug. But with male, it's probably better not to. In the very strict monastic traditions, like you see in the Theravada countries, we don't see so many of them now anymore, but Thailand or Laos or Cambodia or Sri Lanka, where the monks really tried to follow the Vinaya, the vows they'd taken, to the letter. If you see the monk, and a lot of I can't tell what's in anybody else's mind, but sometimes the monks in some of those countries seem quite arrogant, and they'd walk down the middle of the sidewalk, and lay people would be jumping off to avoid touching them, and when I was in Thailand with Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, a couple of students had organized a weekend seminar as part of this 1975 world tour. And there were many expats. I don't remember any Thai people coming to this weekend seminar. It was taught in English for a start. And but Lama was invited to some different Thai temples, and there was a Geshe there, Geshe Tenge, who finished up going to France and becoming the teacher at Institute Vajrayogini in France. He just passed away, I think, last year or the year before. The Lama, he'd been sent to Thailand to live in a Thai monastery by His Holiness, and there were Zazab Tulku was there. There are a few other Tibetan monks. So Lama went to visit them, and so the women there were used to being around Theravada monks, and keeping their distance and not being alone in a room with them. So they didn't know what to make of Lama Yeshe. He'd be shaking, he not only would he shake women's hands, then people would be in the background saying, look, what's this Tibetan monk? He's touching the women. He would even hug some of them, And so this really freaked out a lot of the people who'd been used to, who were just used to Thai monks. But, that was coming from Lama's side. So I think from our side, it's better to not to initiate the hug anyway. I think shaking hands is probably okay. I mean, that's kind of fairly non-threatening to a monk. And not that I think a hug from you would either be threatening, but, it's just a question of protocol, I guess. The main things what we should and shouldn't do are the internal, that once we've established this Dharma connection, we should not lose the thought that this is the Buddha appearing in this form for my benefit, and not look at the teacher's faults, but try to look at the teacher's good qualities and focus on those. And anything that we perceive as faults, think that, as Geshe-la just said, our view is not reliable. That, while we're under the control of ignorance, attachment, and aversion, we don't see things as they really are. So our view isn't completely trustworthy. So, I mean, these are, and then if we look at if you look at the teachings on how to rely on the Guru in thought, then I think it's clear from that what we shouldn't do. And when we look at how to rely on teachers through actions, then what we shouldn't do is we should not make offerings. We should make offerings. I mean, we shouldn't do the opposite of what we should do, is basically the answer to your question. I mean, is there something more specific you had in mind?
Well, I'm basically very glad that I've been warned about the hug thing. But no, thank you. I'll give that some thought. Thank you.
Okay. The answers, as I say, are all in the teachers, and, big lack of, through lack of time and lack of knowledge on my part, we can't really cover this topic adequately without suggesting that you do some, further reading and study. And there, as we've said, there's a lot of material there that can be studied, and especially Rinpoche's book, The Heart of the Path. I mean, that contains it all. So, I think that's one of the best Dharma books that's out there. Even if I published it myself. Okay. Anybody else?
Dr. Nick, could you please mention the Buddhism in a nutshell with Kuno Lama Rinpoche?
Mention what?
A little bit about, just mention what, because the next class would be in June. The schedule holds is okay with you, but you would be basing it on your class on Kuno Lama Rinpoche's commentary on Foundation of All Good Qualities. Could you tell us a little bit about Kuno Lama Rinpoche?
Well, yeah, so Buddhism in a nutshell is generally the one of the FPMT's introductory courses to Buddhism. And there are certain topics that have to be covered. I felt a good way, since the Lam Rim is the heart of our practice. It's the Lam Rim that was the engine that started this organization and got most of us onto the path at the beginning. I thought it was a good way to use a text like that. Not specifically that text, but a glance meditation on the Lam Rim would serve as a great introduction to Buddhism for people. So that's why I suggested that text, The Foundation of All Good Qualities. But there's also the benefit of having a commentary on it by, a highly realized bodhisattva. Kuno Lama is, and it's a teaching I received in person from him. So it has that sense of oral transmission. It was translated by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So, it's a great little nutshell. It contains a lot of goodies. Kuno Lama Rinpoche himself is highly educated. He's born in northern India in the Kulu Spiti region, and so near Manali. But he went to Tibet. He studied with many great lamas, and he was extremely learned. He knew Sanskrit and Pali and Tibetan and Hindi, and probably other languages as well. I don't know, probably his local dialect. And he was most famous as for giving teachings to His Holiness the Dalai Lama on Bodhicharyavatara, giving His Holiness the commentary on Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So, a bodhisattva giving teachings to another bodhisattva on that seems kind of special. And as I said, he was extremely ascetic Lama. He lived a very, very simple life, and he came to Nepal in the beginning of '75 at the invitation of one of the monasteries in Kathmandu, and he stayed in Bodhanath, and we went down. Rinpoche asked him to give us teaching, so he gave us the teaching on Foundation of All Good Qualities. He also gave us the teaching on the first Lam Rim text, Atisha's Lamp for the Path, so we could equally have done that as well. I don't know, I'll talk more about his life when we do the when we actually start the program, but that's Kuno Lama in a nutshell. When is that? In June, did you say?
Yes, it's in June. I have it scheduled. Shanka will probably touch base with you. It's June 7th.
Okay, yeah. Okay. At this time, is it at this time?
Yes, it's at this time.
Okay.
But on a Monday.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I'm sure we'll sort it out. Also, we have to. Sorry?
And may I screen share the prayers, Dr. Nick?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Evadi nyo duda lama sangye rogyo rowa chikyam maluka Dei Saga Gobajo Nanjo Senjo Rinpoche Magye Banam Ge Gyochi Ge Vanyamba Me Baya Gani Ongdu Bawa Jiden Kande Pende Maluka Kanle Juwe Sambel Yijin Kanden Sume Tenzin Gyatsola Soa Deso Tuje Lundo Yo Tuzu Zhangxin Jianggong Yahweh Den Xingyong Pewei Gongzo Doubo Ze Zhozum Guwei Lek Mandu Rupa Dazo Zuje Gong Du Shab Ten Yo Sapa Nujo Sa De Ro Yawa Kole La Pedije La Ya Samsi Jo Te Riguso Jo La Kande Dembe Kyoja Big Measure with it. Okay, well, thank you very much. Hope there was some benefit. Certainly helped me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Nick. It was a wonderful class. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. On behalf of Thupten Norba Ling, we send our utmost gratitude, and we look forward to you teaching more and more for us. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you again for asking me, and see you in June, if not before.